I know Superman is a character that means a lot to people, but I'm not sure there's been a Superman movie in my lifetime that has actually managed to capture that. So there's a brand new Superman reboot in theaters out right now, and it has kind of managed to do the unthinkable. People are invested in this movie. They're talking about it as though it has something to say about the moment. I'm interested in that. I'm Elamin Abdelmahmoud. This is Commotion. Siddhant Adlakha is here, and also Sonya Ballantyne is here, and we are ready to get into it. Hello to both of you. Nice to have you here.
Hi.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Big Superman conversation day. I'm really excited about it. Sonya, I'm going to start with you because Superman, it means so much to you that you literally did like a TEDx talk about this. Tell me about your personal investment in Superman. What's the relationship there?
Well, I have been a Superman fan since I was born, basically. I love the Christopher Reeve movies, basically Superman 2. And what really attracted me to the character was the idea of the sincerity he said when he was fighting for truth and justice, and like that just stuck with me because I grew up in such a negative world as an Indigenous person that somebody who just wanted to help because it was the right thing to do was something that just connected with me as a little girl and still continues to connect with me. And this new movie really captured that feeling of sincerity and without being naive. That was something that I was really like, because I'm an adult now, of course. Like I will always be skeptical of people who are like free love, peace and love. But I was like just so surprised by how much I enjoyed this movie.
I do think that I like that connection. The idea that Superman at its core as a character is an incredibly sincere character. I mean, he literally stands with his hands on his hips and is like, who's ready to do some good around here? And what's really nice about that is that when you have a moment of sincerity, you can actually really connect to it. And so it's really lovely to hear your take and your response on watching this movie and saying, that's the sincerity that I was looking for. I saw that in this movie. Let's play a clip. Let's play a clip from this new reboot. This is going to be an exchange between Superman and Lex Luthor. And in this exchange, Superman is trying to be like, hey, where is my dog Krypto?
Superman, we finally meet. Would you like a coffee?
Where's the dog?
Dog?
The dog, Luthor! You took the dog!
That's right, you get all of this.
Where's the dog?
I have no clue what you're talking about.
He's just a dog.
I don't know what dog you're talking about. Ugly dog in a cape.
What did you say?
This is it. Superman is real, man. Don't take Superman's dog, okay? That's rule number one of all exchanges with Superman. But, Siddhant, I want to talk about the idea that the big part of the sell for this reboot was that James Gunn was going to take over the DC universe because, like, James Gunn did Guardians of the Galaxy, did movies at Marvel. Zack Snyder and company at DC have been making really dark movies. All the superhero movies that they've made have been like very like grim, shall we say. And then James Gunn moves over. He takes over. He does a Superman movie. What is the tone? How do you feel about the James Gunn tone of Superman?
I think tonally it really works because it's more in line with, you can argue this all day, but what I believe a Superman movie should be. And, while I have mixed feelings on the film as a whole, I think what they really nail above anything else is the characters and is, as Sonya said, the optimism and the kindness of it all, which I think is really fundamental to Superman at his core. And I think the actors especially really nail that.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, the actors, the big announcement was that David Cornsweet was going to be the person who's stepping into the Superman boots here. And look, obviously big shoes to fill. Henry Cavill, Christopher Reeves, like those are the towering examples of people who have played Superman before. Sonya, when you think about David Cornsweet and the way that he approached Superman, what did you make of his performance?
Well, I really loved it just because, like, when I was a kid, I always saw Christopher Reeve as like a grown-up. So he was always going to be right. He was always going to make the right choice. He was always going to be just. And with this new Superman, like, he was just a young, dorky guy. Like, he was just there's even a section of the film where he admits that he struggles with anxiety and fear and not knowing if he's going to make the right choice, but deciding to make that choice anyway. And it just really connected with me. And it's the kind of Superman Superman we need now. Like, I loved Henry Cavill more as The Witcher, and in his Mission Impossible movies, but
Yeah.
I felt that his character was somebody who was beaten down by the darkness of DC, like the darkness of the DC comics, by the darkness of the world we live in now. And like, I always felt like, wait, that's kind of not what Superman's about, though. Superman is why we fight against the darkness. And so I really love this new Superman. I hope he gets a really long run of being able to just be this character, because it's a breath of fresh air right now. So I really love that.
Also, I just really love that description of Henry Cavill as Superman, because he absolutely played it as though he's like, look, I have no optimism or hope left, but this is my last spoonful, you know, like in every shot. And that does like eventually get a little exhausting. It's like, hey, you're supposed to be Superman. You're supposed to actually be like, I know it's hard, but I'm going to transcend over all this. So it's nice to hear your response to David Cornsweet playing this. Siddhant, same question to you. How do you feel about where David Cornsweet sort of fits in with the other people who have played Superman before?
I think he is very close to the top. He's probably my favorite big screen Superman since Christopher Reeve, certainly. I think he's right up there with, I think, the recent television Superman played by Tyler Hoechlin, who's on the show Superman and Lois. Who and that character is sort of further along in his journey. He's, been around for a while. He has teenage sons, so it's a very different version. But this is, a younger Superman, still a few years into his career, and he has not what you would call a naivete, but an optimism that hasn't been ground out of him yet. And I think it all comes to a head in this one conversation he has with Lois Lane, where she, in her journalistic capacity, talks about, the geopolitical complications of helping people in a certain region, whereas his whole approach is, I have to save people. That's just what I do. And it speaks to a lot of anxieties in the world right now, where the conversation does keep coming up, well, it's complicated, whereas the truth of the matter in a lot of cases is it's actually not that complicated. It's just a matter of showing basic empathy towards people. And I think, despite the reservations I have about the film as a whole, I think that's something this version of the character really embodies in his, in his dialogue, in his mannerisms. Yeah, I think he's a fantastic fit for the part.
That's the thing that I talked about. That thing that you just mentioned is the thing that I talked about off the top of the show, which is that I have not seen people eager to place a Superman movie within the context of a current political moment, maybe ever in my lifetime. Actually, I don't think that's something that people have felt the urge and the necessity to do. And the fact that they're doing that with this movie is fascinating to me. And there's also been like a big political blowback to that. I want to get to that in just a moment, because like I think that's a big conversation. But you also mentioned the sort of Lois Lane characters. I think like it's important to talk about some of the characters in this movie. So let's just get that out of the way. It's worth noting that this reboot introduces us to not only a new Lois Lane, a new Lex Luthor, but Mr. Terrific. Also, we see Green Lantern member Guy Gardner. Anyone from that extended cast of characters stand out for you, Sonya, as you were watching the Superman?
Well, as you can see in the background, I have my Green Lantern power battery. So I was really happy to see a Green Lantern done so well in a live action property. I love that the first non-embarrassing live action Green Lantern we had was the most embarrassing one from the comic, because Guy Gardner is the most abrasive in the comic book. He's my least favorite. But I love that he balances so well off of like the sincerity and the kindness of Superman, because it's like one of my favorite things about this movie was how the ensemble cast is like important to Superman as a whole, because he can't do it on his own despite being Superman. And I just love that. And I love that Lois Lane, though she loves him, doesn't need him and has her own thing going on throughout the whole film. And I just love that she never she is at odds with Superman and Clark Kent, because she believes that the world is dark and isn't worth saving sometimes, and he has to be like, no, but it is. And so I love that relationship and that dynamic that they both have. Plus, like, I'm just excited to see a Green Lantern having fun with their powers.
Honestly, what's nice about that is that it lets you forget that there has been 30-minute Green Lantern movie already made. You can just go, we're moving on from that. Let's just pretend that never happened. Okay, so we talked about James Gunn being the new sort of the director of this new Superman. He's also the new head of DC Studios. He's got this recent interview where he said that, quote, Superman is the story of America, an immigrant that came from other places and populated the country. But for me, it is mostly a story that says basic human kindness is a value and is something that we have lost. I don't think it's news to people, right? The Superman is an immigrant. He's quite famously actually an alien who's from a different planet. But James Gunn's comments didn't sit well with a lot of people, including Dean Cain, who played Superman on TV. He felt that Gunn's comments made Superman, quote unquote, woke. It said it could hurt the box office numbers. What I want to play you guys is Fox News hosts Kellyanne Conway and Jesse Waters reacting to that.
We don't go to the movie theater to be lectured to and to have somebody throw their ideology onto us. I wonder if it'll be successful.
You know what it says on his cape? MS-13.
Siddhant, talk to me about the ways that this Superman movie is landing politically for people. How did it become so alienating, you think?
I think in the era of the constant culture war, where where politics is almost a grift at this point, there was no way it wasn't going to be divisive in some fashion, because James Gunn himself has already been a figure of some controversy, with some old tweets being uncovered, but it was a lot of bad faith stuff that came up because he, criticized Donald Trump way back when. So there was no way that this wasn't going to be the center of something political regardless. I think, even if Gunn didn't say anything about Superman being an immigrant, there would have been something or the other that, the folks on Fox News would have latched onto. I think in this case, it's also just a very obvious statement that, yes, in the most technical sense, Superman is an immigrant. And I have complicated feelings on to what degree Superman across his various media has represented immigrant stories and my own experience as an immigrant. But I think, regardless of that, just stating the fact that he is, again, in a very technical sense, an immigrant and an undocumented immigrant to start
Created
with.
by Jewish immigrants, right? Created by first generation Jewish immigrants in the 1930s. I mean, this is also literally the origin point of Superman himself as a character, right?
Yeah, one the son of immigrants and one an immigrant from Toronto. Yeah. And it is, it's just a part of the Superman story. It's like saying, what do you mean Batman's parents get killed? That's woke. It's just nonsense. It's complete nonsense. And also the reaction speaks to this hypocritical way that even the term immigrant has become so racialized in the American consciousness, because you look at Superman, he's this white blue-eyed kid from Kansas, but the term itself has become so racialized and politically charged in this vitriolic way that I think part of the response from a lot of these right-wing talking heads comes from this disingenuous anxiety of an immigrant being some sort of outside invader, someone who doesn't look like you, the you in this case being, a white American. And it's nonsense, and it's unfortunate that we have to talk about it so much. But at the same time, it has become a part of the conversation and probably would become a part of the conversation whether or not James Gunn had said anything.
Tony, what do you make of this? The idea that Superman is polarizing for being political, even though the character truly has been the whole time.
Well, as an Indigenous person, movies and growing up in such a negative space, movies have always been the way I saw the world be better, and so it always inspired me to be better. And I always find it shameful that Dean Cain, who's probably going to get a Google notification about this conversation, he is Japanese, he has Japanese ancestry, he is an immigrant, and here he is punching down at a character that basically gave him his career. And I feel that this character just is annoying the worst parts of humanity right now because of what he represents as a character, kindness and doing the just thing. Because I know justice is not black or white sometimes, but to Superman it is. There's people dying from real life conflicts right now, and that's a big part of this movie about the idea of when is a conflict too political to get involved with? And he's like, no, that's not the case here. And so I just love that he is so for lack of a better word, punk rock about being kind, that I'm just like, yeah, like we need that right now. So
That's I think that's a beautiful place to sort of leave it. But before we just kind of go, Siddhant, I want to ask you real quick. Got about a minute left here. This idea that this movie it's kind of the first movie from James Gunn's DC universe reign. What do you think that signals to you about where James Gunn wants to take DC in the next little while?
The movie already starts off with a DC universe that feels ongoing, that feels like it exists outside the corners of the frame, with all these supporting characters. I do think it gets a little overstuffed at times and takes the attention off Superman's story, but like Sonya said, having a fully formed Guy Gardner is just such a delight, especially an actor who has been cast as the more straight-laced Hal Jordan for decades. But that's its own conversation. I think it seems like a universe with a lot of possibilities. I do hope, the movies get better over time, but I think this is a decent start in terms of the characters and where Gunn wants to take them.
I think that's a good place to leave it. I appreciate both of your times. Thank you so much for being here, you guys. Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Yes, of course. Sonya Ballantyne is a Swampy Cree filmmaker based in Winnipeg, and Siddhant Adlakha is a freelance film critic based in New York. Superman is in theaters right now. I'm Elamin Abdelmahmoud, and this is Commotion. Look, I feel like the journey from Labubu's arriving to peak Labubu's happened like without my permission. Like that's how quickly it feels like it just kind of happened. First, you hear about Labubus and you go, oh, sure, I've seen one or two. Those are tiny stuffed toys. They have gigantic teeth, and they're really cute to look at. It's a nice time. But then Rihanna's got one, and you go, okay. Then Dua Lipa gets one, and you go, all right, what's happening? And then my 8-year-old is lobbying me to get one, and then suddenly the guy who owns the company that makes them is the youngest billionaire ever in China. And I go, what is going on? And also, why are they so impossible to get? Luckily, I don't have to answer all those questions on my own because Alyssa Mercante is here. Alyssa, hi, can you help? Would that be okay?
We're going to be okay. I mean, I have a Lafufu dangling from my microphone right now, so I can't really tell you, I don't have a real one. But I know how to
Lafufu
get
is a
real one.
fake Labubu. That's what that is,
Yes,
right?
there's tons of bootlegs. They sell them in bodegas here in New York City. Like, they're everywhere.
Walk me through this. When did you first hear about Labubus?
So it's weird. I had kind of seen them a little bit on TikTok, but you can really see how well your For You page is tailored to things that you look at, because I didn't start getting Labubu content until I started looking for Labubu. But I was in LA for a video game event while the ICE protests were first kicking off. And I was keeping track of those protests while working pretty religiously. And one of the pictures was of someone at a protest holding a sign. I think it said F ICE. And they were dressed like a Labubu. They were in a full Labubu costume, like a mascot costume, like head and fur zip up in the back. And I was like, what the heck are these things? Mm-hmm. And so I started looking for them.
I think it's valuable to like maybe point out like the ways that like they're not just the toys, it's also the ways that they play into status. So do you want to talk a little bit about like how status plays into the Labubu craze?
I think it's dual, right? So I think obviously the demand for it and the difficulty to get a real one increases the status of anyone who could manage to get a real one. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like the prototypical American dream. Either you have enough money to just go buy one at a reseller site for hundreds of dollars, or you have the work ethic to sit on this app and try and get it late at night. Mm-hmm. And I think that is part of the status. And then I think the other aspect of it is they are on keychains. They're very wearable. And I think in a fashion world that's getting much more leaning towards like back when in the millennium turn, when people were wearing 8 different keychains on bags and doing more maximalist stuff, this kind of fits into it. And it's really interesting to see that the fashion community, celebrities have picked up on this. The LGBTQ plus community has really jumped on these. Like I saw someone dressed as a Labubu performing at Pride. So
First of all, that sounds warm, but more than anything else, that sounds like just
So
incredibly,
hot.
incredibly warm to me. Okay, Shirley, our tech, brought her Labubu in today, and it was, I'm not gonna lie to you, Shirley, a bit of a flex, but that's okay. But what I really want to get at is like, how do you get one? Because there is something complicated about that process that maybe people don't understand. They think you can just like walk into, I don't know, Walmart and just grab one off the shelf. Not quite how it works.
No, they're only sold, the legitimate ones are only sold at face value at Pop Mart, which is a retail store that is only in certain major cities. But what's crazy is it's technically not even, you can't go into the store and buy them. You have to order it online and pick it up in the store. And in order to get it online, you need to go through these kind of crazy hoops and hurdles and ensure that you've logged on when they're restocking them, because they're always out of stock, and you have to log on at a resale time, and you have to go through this really kind of, it's almost like a game. You need to continuously swipe to try and find an available box, tap that box before somebody else taps that box, shake it, virtually to get a hint about what's in there, because these are blind boxes, you don't know what you're getting, and then put it in your cart, draw a little thing like a lucky symbol to help you open it, and then it opens after you buy it. So I tried this for an hour this past Thursday, and I fell asleep trying to do it.
I just want to just like note and that I understand, to someone who's not started partaking in Labubus, we sound crazy right now. Like, what do you mean you virtually shake a box? That doesn't make any sense whatsoever. But like, that is part of the process of like, you go, okay, this is how you understand how you get to participate in getting a Labubu. But we've seen, the idea of like it's a Black Friday and Beanie Babies and Cabbage Patch Kids all kind of rolled into one. And maybe there's something about the participatory nature where you get to say your story, be like, this is how I got a Labubu. That feels like it's all kind of rolled into all of this. Is this like a new way to consume, to build excitement around a new product? Because I'm invested and I don't even have one.
Yeah. And it's obviously we have the baseball cards, the Pokemon cards, before people were kind of always online, had access to the internet, or the internet was even a thing. You never knew what you were getting with that as well.
Yeah.
But then with the advent of the internet, that sort of blind box, also, like, it's called a gashapon. It's based off a Japanese vending machine where you don't know what you're getting when you pay for the item. It just drops out and you open it. That then turned into gacha games, which are a very similar concept, but they're video games. You're looking for cosmetics or certain characters. You're paying money to unlock a blind box. You don't know what it is, and you hope that you get the one that you've been hoping for. Now, these kind of represent this weird in between, because obviously they're physical items, but you cannot go into a Pop Mart store to buy them and do this sort of patented, now this is a fake box, this sort of patented shake method, which is what some people do with blind boxes, because you can kind of guess the weight or listen to what it is in there. So this app has now made it like, it's kind of like you're in the store, but you're not, and you're scrambling to get it. It's not the same as people trampling each other in a Toys R Us in
not
1995.
Yeah.
So it's definitely safer in that aspect. But it is this really interesting way of being like, if you don't have the financial capability to go buy it at a reseller for $300, you could just, put your head down and work your way to getting it. And it really is this like bastardized American dream consumerism thing all over again.
I tell you, there's nothing more distressing to me than the idea that the references that people use are references from my childhood, because I kind of go, oh, that's what it looks like to approach your 40s. It's fine. Maybe find a different reference that isn't Pokemon cards, okay? When you think about the Labubu trend where we are now, does it feel like we are maybe approaching the end of Labubus, or where does it go from here?
I feel like they started picking up around the end of last year, and I think with how much demand there still is for them, that I think Pop Mart is being very clever and very, discerning as a company making money to make sure that there's not a lot of them available, that it is still a scramble to try and get them. That demand is still so high that there are entire content creators who make their entire social media presence showing you all the tricks and tips to how to get a Labubu. And those are still getting hundreds of thousands of views.
Right.
So people are still trying to get them. But what I think is really going to keep them alive through at least the rest of this year is when we get back to school. I think
Oh, yes.
I think, yeah, my sister and my father both work at schools. They haven't really seen them yet, but I have heard of people who work in summer camps being like, I needed to build a Labubu jail because these kids were going insane over them. Yeah, like they're not paying attention. They're
Yeah.
fighting over the colors that they have. You know, they're trying to snag each other's. So I really think
Oh,
that
no.
once the school year comes back, we're going to see, you know, there's going to be like local news of like, Labubu's banned. Like, I think they're not going to let them in school. I think it's going to be a huge status symbol problem. Like, I can 100% see this being an issue.
That is a grim warning. It is July, my dude. But that tells me that September is going to be a rough time. In the meantime, I appreciate your time. Thank you so much for being here, Alyssa. You're the best. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, of course. Anytime. Enjoy your Lafufu until you get maybe a real one day. Alyssa Mercante is a video game and internet culture journalist. She's in New York. My name is Elamin Abdelmahmoud. This show is called Commotion. Hey, we're going to be back tomorrow. We are talking about Justin Bieber's new album, which was a surprise drop, and I've never been more delighted by a surprise drop in my life. A lot to talk about. That's Justin Bieber coming up tomorrow. In the meantime, I hope you have a great day. See you tomorrow.